Well, welcome to the second part of the rocker panel replacement video. And I just want to apologize. I've been working on this blazer pretty much every day. I got a day job, so it keeps me pretty busy. And I just need to get off my butt, start editing. As you can see, I've got the engine, it's already rebuilt. Transmission's rebuilt, they're back in the frame. I've got the body on a rotisserie over there. I'm gonna start working on that pretty soon, but working on a transfer case now. I'm going to rebuild it this weekend. But more videos are coming. I apologize for the lateness, and enjoy the second part of this rocker panel replacement.
Here you can see where I've sanded off that black coating, the length of the rocker panel where it's going to be welded, spot welded along here. Well, not spot welded, but welded with spots along that area. And then it also welds down on top of this area here. So I've ground all that black stuff off. Everywhere it's going to touch where I'm going to be welding, I've ground it down, and then I'm going to spray some primer on it, rust or weld through primer, and then do the same thing here. Got that sandblasted down to as far as I care to get it. I've painted, again, stuff that looks like this, and it's held up well, so I don't think that rust will come back. But there we go. Here's that rocker panel. I went ahead and just drilled 1/4-inch holes along the bottom. See those holes right there? Nice pretty holes. Spaced them out about an inch, inch and a half a piece. And then it'll weld along this edge right here where it used to be spot welded. So I paid attention to this drain and this drain. I'm not putting any welds in that area. Then on top, this welds to the top here, and there's a drain here to put it there. And then it just welds to the top, and I drilled holes across the top, and I will MIG weld those in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get it fitted, and then we'll pick it up from there. I've got 2 clamps in place now, holding the tops of those. You can see where those holes all line up with that bottom edge. And I did drill out, this one I drilled out a little bit too far. You can see a little gap there, but that's fine. That MIG welder can fill that in. A couple of the other ones, but it was important for me to get a tight fit across the top here, simulate what that factory looked like. And then the same thing over here. This might be a little more challenging. I hope you can pick that up on the camera. There are some gaps there, so I'll use my metal hammer, try and straighten those out and get it tight before I start welding up in there. But then an interesting note, these clamps, this clamp here, that clamp there, just reminded me, I borrowed these from my neighbor back in Ohio, I think back in 86, 87. So Sam Deaver, if you're out there, I still have them. Apologize. I promise I'll get them back to you. Just let me know if you want them back. I will send them. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and tack weld a couple of these in there, and then we'll go from there. Put some tack welds in here. I drilled a hole there, tack welded it on top, and still got a little bit of a gap. I'll be able to take care of that with a hammer and dolly, or just a hammer. Tack weld there, tack weld there, tack weld there, 1 there, and 2 right there. So problem I have right now is the gaps. So you can see this is the gap on. Problem we have now is the gap on top, and I can't show this. You can see the shadow there. So now I'm going to try and manipulate that, tack weld it in place, so when I start hammering it away, the metal will stretch instead of just be bouncing around. So this part came together really nice. It's funny, I said tack weld. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 welds right there. Hopefully it all fits. But while the metal was hot from those tack welds or spot welds, I was able to use a hammer and a persuasion tool to get those joints pretty tight. So I'm happy with that, and I'm going to literally tack the bottom and then put the door and fender back on and make sure it all fits. And then if it does, go crazy with the welding. I have the door mounted, and bad news, I've got a huge gap in the back, and as you work your way to the front, it almost touches. So what I'm going to have to do is grind out those 2 spot welds, plug welds, grind out that plug weld, take out that ugly plug weld in the back, and then I'm gonna use a jack probably, jack up the back of that, close that gap, and then probably put some shims in there to push it down and then re-weld it. So it shouldn't be too hard. Just gotta grind out those damn welds. So, all right.
Hi there. I was editing the video and I noticed that I didn't put any clips of the finished product. So fast forward, it's now January, February. Most of the video was filmed back in September or October. And now the body's up on a lift. I get the frame separated on the other side of the garage. And I will just jump in here and show you what the finished product looked like. So I was able to plug weld across the top, and then all those holes I put in the rocker panel, I just plug weld those. Came out all right. I got to go through, smooth them out, and then if they need any kind of body filler, I'll body fill them. But I don't think I'm going to have to. And then I did 3 on the side, and it holds it pretty tight. And then underneath here, across the bottom, it's just all welded in, and it turned out all right. And I used vice grips that I borrowed back in the 80s to hold that together, and then just kind of welded it right to that lip of this rocker box, and then I think it turned out okay. So we got this side off, the passenger side rocker panel. It is gone. And not so bad here. There's a rust hole right there. And if you look up, it all looks rusty, but I don't see any holes, which is much better than the other side. So I just used the air chisel, my crappy air chisel, and then a grinder wheel. You can see I cut a little bit too close there. But I got it off. There's a little bit of rust on this pillar right through here. And on the other side, it's not a big hole, just like the other side. So I'll be patching that, but now I'm gonna take a wire wheel to this, get it all cleaned up, because my garage is getting to be a mess. I'm gonna get this out and get it clean, but there it is. Passenger side done. I think it took me an hour and a half to get that off, maybe an hour. So there you go. All right, here I just marked off this spot. I'm going to cut it out on those white lines. Thankfully it was the only rusty part underneath that rocky panel, or I wouldn't say rusty part, but the only part with a hole in it. And then I'm gonna cut this part out, the rear quarter panel as well. I don't know, but I've been looking at the quarter panel, and you can see the checking. There's a lot of damage back here, so I imagine there's a lot of body filler. So I don't know if I want to go through all the trouble of making this patch panel only to replace the entire quarter panel later. So I'm going to cut it out, and then I'll probably grind off that paint tomorrow. Check it out. Thanks. Okay, so here's that piece I cut off, the quarter panel. See, it's got some holes in it. Just take that off. On the inside there, it doesn't look so bad. That's just surface rust that'll clean up. And then this piece here, it came out, again, holes, but the metal's pretty thick. It's holding up well where I cut it, so it should weld up really easy. I went ahead and primered with the weld through primer for the whole piece here, and for here, I just cut out a piece of sheet metal from the rocker panel that I removed. You still see it's got that green color. I'll shave that off and then prep it. But I'm gonna weld that in, and it fits pretty nice. Here's the rocker panel that I cut off on the passenger side. And I just took and cut off a piece this big here, and then sized it to fit right here, and it fits pretty good. So I'm just gonna, it fits pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and tack that in, and then move on to the next thing.
There it is. Not pretty, but you're not going to see it. I'm grinding that down smooth where it doesn't interfere with the rocker panel. But the holes have been filled. That's the important part. I definitely take more care and take my time when I'm doing body panels that you can see. But yeah, just a simple patch. Well, I had to remove the door because the quarter panel or the rocker panel would not fit in there with the door on. So now I've got this rust. I'm just gonna weld that in, but I'll end up cutting that out, welding him a new piece. On this side, I'm probably just gonna hit that with the MIG welder, see if I can fill in those spots. Got a spot there, got a spot there, got some spots there. So yeah, I'm gonna have some fun. I won't have the camera on. You know, there's another spot there. It's to be honest with you, it's too much of a pain in the ass to set up that camera every time I want to do something. So you know, until I get 1,000 subscribers, 1,000,000 subscribers, and then I can hire a camera person. But until then, you will just have to assume that I did it. Thanks. So what we've got here is welding after a bunch of Miller Lites. Rather than cut out the rusty parts, I just took the old welder and just slagged on a bunch of metal to fix those holes. So it's one way to get it done. The downside is it takes a lot of grinding to get it off. So I will be busy this morning grinding off all those drunk welds. So yeah, don't drink and weld. It's never a good idea. Take it from me. Here's a part of that quarter panel that had all the rust. I cut it out and made myself a patch for it. I coated the inside with the weld-through primer, and I put a nose profile on it using my roller brake combination tool that I bought a while ago. So it did a pretty good job. Fits right in there. It's got maintains a pretty good profile. You can see here. If I press tighter, it does. But it'll move around a little bit when it gets hot from the welding. But yeah, I think it's gonna fit good. I'm just gonna start tacking it from the top, work my way down to make sure it's super flush. Since you will see this part, I take more care in the welding and the work that I do that you can see. The other stuff, I just make it work, and you'll never see that. So I stop caring how it looks, as long as it's strong. But here we go. Okay, I got all the tack welds on. So what I'll do now is I'll go to the bottom of that weld, then the bottom of that weld, then the bottom of that weld, then that one, and just keep working all the way around. I don't want to put too much heat in one spot because I don't want it to start warping on me. So as long as you just hit it once, like this one here is a really good one. It's pretty flush. That one was cameraman. That one there bulges out way too much, but as long as you just keep hitting it just a little bit, your metal should stay straight on you and not warp. So it's gonna take a while. I'm not filming it, sorry. So here it is, probably about halfway done. Just closing the gaps on all the little spot welds that I'm doing, but ends up looking like that until it's all filled in. And then so far I've been checking it. There's been no warping, no nothing, so looks good. Here it is done welded. Warped a little bit on top, so I'll be able to dolly that out. I can get to it from behind. So there it is. I'm going to sand it down and move on. Okay, patch is in place. I used a couple different sanders, and man, on camera it looks like shit, but trust me, in person it's absolutely beautiful. Nice and flat. So there's some areas where there's some pitting where the metal just went in, and what I typically do is I use a sandblaster and then I clean that out, and then when the primer and just a little bit of filler gets in there, yeah, it'll be all good. So overall, pretty happy with it. Primer's dry. I'm going to go ahead and you can see I got all that fixed and primered in there. Came out pretty good. Pretty happy with it. But primer's dry. I'm gonna go ahead and fit that rocker panel on there, tack it in place, and then commence to welding. Here's the panel gap on the passenger side, and I paid a lot more attention doing this side. I wish I would have done it on the other side, but the gap turned out, I mean, there's a big gap here for the doors pushed out because the door is off. It takes forever to align these things. I didn't get into it, but the gap between the door and the rocker panel looks great, even back here. And then you can see there's the patch that I fixed. There was a bunch of rust holes in the rear quarter panel. I got in there, and the way the inner structure is put together, it was holding a lot of dirt, so that dirt just got moist and ate through the metal from the inside out. And then the plug welds on the inside this rocker panel are just like the driver's side I showed earlier. All right, so that was it. Thanks for watching that video. And again, it took so long to come out. I just really wasn't happy with the way I filmed it. And the next video, put more care and more work into it. So the next video is going to be a little bit better, where it'll be me separating the frame from the body and then stripping the frame down, getting the engine, transmission, transfer case out, and then sandblasting, painting it. And we'll see how, I'm trying to keep the videos under 20 minutes because I see most people only watch them for 4 minutes. So I thought about just having a whole bunch of 4-minute videos, you know, if that's the attention span. But I get it. These videos can be boring for those who just aren't into doing all the work. But for those that are, you know, sit down, have a couple beers, watch my videos. But if you would, give me a like, go ahead and subscribe. Again, if I get up to 1,000 subscribers, I think 1,000 hours of views, Google or YouTube starts paying me. And then I'm going to hire a full camera crew and editing crew. So I doubt it'll ever happen, but we'll see. But yeah, please hit the like, subscribe, and then we'll see you in the next video.